Lucy, thank you for this nice introduction. Thank you everybody for being here. I know that there are people from all over Latin America, so I'm very, very happy to be giving this webinar today. I am in Buenos Aires right now, so well, let's start. And what I would like to do today with you is, wait a minute, I would like very much to rediscover the power of storytelling in our primary English classrooms. And I say rediscover on purpose because, I mean, if there is something that we have always done is storytelling. And so nowadays it has been rediscovered. And I think it's a great thing. So what I would like to do with you today is firstly, paying attention to storytelling as a wholesome language learning experience that our children in primary and pre-primary can experience. So for that, I would like to introduce my pedagogical framework, which supports storytelling as part of our English primary classroom experience. And I would like to share some strategies, some creative strategies to make it possible and exemplify with Helbling's teaching material. So this would be what I would like to do with you in this coming hour. So the first thing I would like to do is, if it is storytelling, then I would like to start with a story, right? So once upon a time is how it begins. I will somehow adapt a story by Colin McNaughton, and it goes something like this. At some point, there were children in the classroom waiting for their teacher to come, but for some reason, on that day, there was a substitute teacher. And this substitute teacher made a great impression on the children, because when he came in with a huge music box, what we would call a Victrola. So it's a very old music box. And the children had never seen a Victrola before. So that was, they immediately paid attention. And the teacher put the Victrola there, and he took some discs, huge discs. The children had never seen the discs like that. And he put music on it. So the kids were all enthralled. What is going on? The teacher stopped the music and said, I would very much like that all of you pick up a piece of paper, some colors, and draw what the music make you feel. Draw the images that come to your mind. And he put music again, and all the children started drawing. So the music was on, the children were drawing, everything was quiet, calm, nice, and the teacher stopped the music. And he asked the children to tell him what they drew. And everybody in the classroom started sharing their pictures. And there were elephants, and there were birds flying, and there were dolphins in the sea, playing around, jumping around. Kids had amazing imagination, and they were all different. They had a blast of a class. So this was a very short introduction with this short story. And the question I would like to ask you, and I would like you to write on the chat box, is, what do you think the teacher did to catch the children's attention? What was his pedagogical framework? So let's see whether you can write on the chat box what the teacher did to get the children's attention. Because maybe you find some of his practices, something you do, something different from what the kids expected. Wow, yes, that is the surprise element, right? That we always need to have there for us to use. She lowered their affective filter. Wonderful, yes, with music. The Victrola, the object, yes, the object is important. Real material, yes, realia in class. think outside the box. Absolutely. Yes. She asked them to use their imagination. She used music and created a wonderful atmosphere. Amazing. Yes, it's all of that. An invitation to connect with a form of art. Absolutely. It was his introduction in a way, and he needed to get to know the children. So the best way to get to know them was through what they drew, right? Then he knew some pictures were minimalistic, some pictures had lots of little details. Right. Thank you. Well, so now we are ready to see in what way what I am talking somehow connects with what happened in the story. And in this case, it's what pedagogical frame I use to work with storytelling in the classroom. So let me share with you the next slide. And here it is. When I teach at the moment, I use three main pedagogies. Pedagogies of cognition to develop critical thinking skills, pedagogies of creativity to develop creative thinking skills, and pedagogies of inclusion to develop social thinking skills. Now, if we think of what we do as English teachers, when we teach English, the language, very often we resort to pedagogies of cognition, right? Because we need our children to learn the intricacies of the language, the structure of the language, to be able to use it. So mainly what we do is we use critical thinking skills for comparing, contrasting, categorizing, interpreting, analyzing. We need cognition when we describe, when we learn vocabulary, when we learn grammar structures. So we use a lot of pedagogies of cognition. Now, if we would like our child to have a wholesome English learning experience, we need to add to the pedagogies of cognition, pedagogies of creativity, and pedagogies of inclusion. When we think of pedagogies of creativity, we think of the teacher who came with a big stroller to the classroom, right? Because with the big stroller, he was, and with the activity he planned to work with the big stroller, he was working with imagination, right? And curiosity and play. So in a way, all of these immediately trigger the children's creative thinking skills, right? And then they combine with the pedagogies of cognition. Now, we also need pedagogies of inclusion because we are working with the whole child, right? And education, not only the specificity of our subject, but also the learner and whatever the learner learns at school. And we are part of that. So when we think of social thinking skills, we think of helping children and through stories. This is something that is so easy to do, right? Helping children to develop empathy, helping children to develop intercultural awareness or perspective taking, learning that there are other ways of thinking, of doing things, listening carefully. So in this combination of these three is the support for the kind of work that I support when I think of storytelling in the classroom. Now, the other thing I would like to ask you now is when we think of stories and story time, I would like you to tell me why you would say this is important in the classroom, why you give importance to storytelling, because I assume that if you hear, it's because storytelling is something that you know, you do, or you would like to do. So tell me why you would use stories in the classroom. Which would be your reasons? Please write them in the chat box so we can all share. I have lots of reasons, but before telling mine, I would like to know yours. Classics can share values. Great, so you use stories because of the values, right? Because it creates good basis to learn lots of things. Absolutely, absolutely. It opens up to all possibilities in terms of topics. Make connections, build vocabulary, enjoy learning, encourages imagination, literacy, cultural awareness. Oh, wonderful. For the imagination and creativity. Okay, children to open up. Oh, it's so fast. I'm using storytelling to give them context. All right, so somebody had no electricity, so they had stories. Absolutely, the old-fashioned way, which is fantastic. I love reading or telling stories to kids in a circle, no, the story time circle. Wonderful. Well, I organized all your ideas in the following chart. So this is more or less the chart. Of course, there is a lot more, but I needed to make it fit for us today. So one of the things that you mentioned is imagination. So I'm on the right, and imagination, helping children to develop imagination enriches their lives with stories they can relate to and characters they may identify with. So this is fantastic as a life skill because it helps them develop problem-solving strategies, right? So they can more or less do what the characters have done, or they learn from what the characters experienced, right? The love of books and stories. I think this is something that we all hope happens when we go through the school system, right? To develop the pleasure of reading. This is a life skill that we give, that I try to give to every child, right? And on top of that, through reading, they develop linguistic, artistic, and aesthetic awareness. Sorry. One important aspect in English language teaching is that when we use stories in English, we use stories from all over the world. And this is great to develop the intercultural skills, right? Because we bring other worlds, could be real or imaginary, and diverse cultures into the learners' lives. So in that way, we help learners develop empathy. Remember the pedagogies of inclusion, imagination, and the love of books is pedagogies of creativity and pedagogies of cognition in the case of developing linguistic, artistic, and aesthetic awareness. Now, we learn language through stories, right? And when we read stories to children, we know that they have lots of repetition. So this fosters repetition of the language chunks, attentive pronunciation, and appropriate intonation and rhythm to match the tone of the story. See how much they are learning when they are listening to the story or when they are telling the story or retelling, no? This repetition of language, this attentive pronunciation and the rhythm and the intonation. It develops learners' concentration and it focused attention and sustained reading and listening. So see how much language learning profits from the storytelling moment. And obviously, this is a wholesome language learning experience because it brings meaningful content to language classes as well as spontaneous listening and speaking, which in our contexts, it doesn't happen otherwise. So that's the importance of these 5 areas. I tried to put all of them in 4 different areas for us to remember: language learning, wholesome language learning experience, intercultural awareness, the love of books and stories, and imagination. So having said that, we need to exemplify, right? How do we do it in the classroom? And so let me share with you how this can be done. Now, I would like to ask you, what do you think this is? This is a little creature called What's It? And it's in Marbles 1, and it belongs to Marbles 1 and Marbles 2. So this What's It appears. And I would like to ask you to write on the chat what you think that What's It is. Let's see what you say. What you think that little creature is. It's a ghost. Oh, Pamela, it's a ghost. It could be made of thoughts, a thought bubble. Lovely idea. It means curiosity. Oh, that's children's thoughts. Imagination. It's a little ghost. Oh, nobody. Okay, imagination. Oh, nobody. I thought of so many things, and you did not mention them. You had other ideas. Curiosity. Right. So for this is interesting. A feeling, their interests. Okay. A sheep. I love that. A sheep. A picture of ideas. Perhaps a soul. Oh, that's lovely. A soul, a bubble ghost of imagination, an idea. Great. An imaginary friend, an idea. All right. Perfect. Well, I thought of many concrete things like a balloon or like a ball or like a marble or like a cloud, but you thought of it in more abstract terms like curiosity or imagination or thoughts or ideas. Very, very interesting. Now, what's it in the story is a genie. It's a kind of mythological spirit from the Arabian stories, from the Arabian tradition. And you know that genies have, they can do something. They can make our wishes come true. So this is our genie, right? And so you will see how a course book can have, the possibility of embedding storytelling in the very units, right? So it's already made up for us, which is great. Because when we have lots of teaching hours, we need some help, right? So now look. This is the welcome unit in Marvels 1. And here we have the explanation for the children of who what's it is and who what's it will become, right? What's it will be the link to connect all the units, and it will be like the known thing that when the children see, they say, oh, what's it is here. And so that's like the beginning of the new unit, like the link, yes, for to connect, like the bridge. So what we have here on this slide is you will see the present and the past. So the children see the present here with the three characters that are going to be the characters all along the book, three friends today. They go for a walk in the woods, and they find this box, which was, hidden there. There were lots of leaves and things covering it all up. So that box they found is actually a magic box. And when they open it, the genie pops up, and the genie is what's it? Now, on the other side, on the other page, what we have is the origin of what's it, of what's it. So we know, right? So here we have the story. And if you pay attention, one way to work with it, before you actually read the story with the children, there you have a video. If you click there, it will take you to the video, which using, moving images and lots of sounds and music, it tells you the story that the children will later on read. So first they have a first experience with the story in the video or through the video, and then they actually read the story. And in the story, it's a faraway land, and there lived a wizard in a very big castle that you can see there. And that wizard had a daughter who had a magic box. So when they go to the woods, the girl plays with the magic and with box and with what's it. So there it is when the girl says, when what's it appears, and she says 1, 2, 3, red for me, and so what's it becomes red, and then yellow, and then blue, and in the end the girl stops playing, and the father, the wizard, sees that the girl is playing with colors, so he creates very colorful butterflies, and so the girl starts playing with the butterflies and forgets completely about the magic box, and the magic box stays there in the woods for years and years and years and centuries until our three friends find it. And then they find what's it. So that's the beginning of our story with what's it in the book. But then what's it can be used for many other moments in the course book. For example, it can be used at the beginning to introduce the unit. And here, that is when we work with pedagogies of creativity, we mainly work with playful attitudes, right? We create activities which involve play, especially because we all know that play is a mode of learning for children. So including play in our classes is central. So let me show you how you can play with what's it. Now, this is the welcome unit in Marbles 2, the second book of the series. And what we have is a picture, right? So, well, we work with a picture with the kids, and the kids describe the picture, see obviously the unit will have a lot to do with healthy food, probably, school objects, and probably toys, right? Because that's what we see. And so the question here is for the children is to find out where is what's it. And what's it hides behind the objects or inside the objects. What's it is magical. So what's it can be anywhere. And we can find out where what's it is because we can always see what's its eyes. And the children have the magic words. And the magic which they learned in Marbles 1, right, at the very beginning. And the magic words are the following. What's it? What's it? Is that you? I can see your eyes so blue. And so watch it appear, right? It doesn't matter where it's hidden, it appears. So here we have the first welcome unit for Marbles 2. And the question for you is to see where you can see where what's it is. And now I would like to read you and to see whether you found out, oh, sorry, where what's it is. Let me see. In the tiger, says Camila. Tiger, says Carmen. Wow. Okay. Tiger eyes, says Alejandro. Well, yes, you found out. That's great. Now here it is, you see, these are the eyes. And so that's what's it. So that's the element of finding what's it, which is what appears, the first start to create interest. Now, this is another story which talks about, or which continues with what's it as one of the main characters, right? And it's, you know, the story is told in episodes. So every unit has a different episode, right? And this is the unit in Marbles 1. This is episode 2. And here the story goes as follows. The three children, the two of them come to pick up the third one, and the girl cannot find what's it. So the girl is about to go to school, but she cannot find what's it. She's a bit worried. But what she doesn't know is that what's it is about to go to school with them inside the girl's rucksack. So when they are at school, yes, they were supposed to bring their favorite toys because it was a show and tell moment, something that we do in class with the very little ones. And so they all go to the classroom, and what's it was here and will go to the main classroom as well. Because what happens is that when the teacher says it's the show and tell moment, our little girl had forgotten hers. So she's really, really worried until she sees the poster on the wall and she says, "What's it? What's it? Is that you? I can see your eyes so blue." And so what's it appears. And so she says, "I need you to be a toy." And she says, "A kite." And so what's it becomes a kite. And she goes to the front to show her toy, and everybody loves the kite. And she thanks what's it for the help. So in that way, you can see how a course book can include a story, and the story needs to have all these elements like the conflict, the tension, the resolution, right? So in that case, you can see that it has all of these. There is a little bit of a problem at the beginning that Sally cannot find what's it, but then she goes to school all the same, hoping that what's it will appear, but what's it is already there and nobody knew. And then what's it helps the girl to solve the problem she's in. So this was my first example. What I would like to share with you now is what is the model I follow to work with stories in the classroom, right? And the model is the same no matter whether I work with kindergarten children or with sixth formers, right? So, but what will vary is the type of activity, the type of story, and the type of creative responses I would expect from the learners, right? But the moments are going to be the same. Before I go into that, I will check and see whether there is something I need. Okay. Okay, so yeah, no, apparently it's okay. So, as you can see, there is something interesting here. When you tell the story, or when you use, for example, this one, this is level 1. So here, the pictures help a lot to use the language, right? And the language is very, very simple. The story is told mainly through the pictures. Now, when you do storytelling and you have the pictures and they have the simple words that they're going to use, you can use more language because they can follow, because they're following the story. This is language that they hear for spontaneous listening, right? For the activities later on, you will resort to more simple structures, right? But those moments in which they hear language is important to build up their understanding of the language. So now let me share the model I follow. This is the model I approach storytelling. It has 4 moments. The first moment, I call it the hook. It could be anything. It could be the lead in, it could be the starting point. It can have any name. It's the beginning, right? It's what you do. And I call it the hook because as it happened in the story I told you at the very beginning, to catch your attention mainly, in that story, we saw that the teacher who came in, the teacher came with a Victrola, and the Victrola was the hook, right? For them to see, what is that? What is that for? We have never seen that. So there is always something we do to catch the students' attention, and we need to pay attention to that moment. The second moment is the story time proper. That is what we do when we tell the story. And here we do everything, right? We use our voice, we use all the possible tones that we give meaning, we use our bodies, we move around, we use props, we use everything for the children to follow, right? Then when we finish that, what I do before anything is I try to get some creative responses with the learners. so they can activate even more their creative thinking skills. And there is a purpose for that. I will show you later in the next example. And finally, there is a moment of reflection in which I ask them questions like, what was the best part for you? Or what did you like about it? Or do you remember one or two words connected with the story? Something for them to go back to the story and draw or write something related. So this is the same circle I have here, but this time I expanded it so we could talk a bit more about them. So in the hook, what we do is we try to develop interest, to raise curiosity, develop imagination, activate their prior knowledge, because they may know if I come with a whale, for example, and we have read a story about the whale, they can say something about what they already know, or maybe it's a moment of discovery for them, or maybe for inquiry. Maybe we want them to go to the garden and find out something, right? So it may be something related to inquiry or discovery. Then when we have the story time proper, we tell the story, or we read aloud, or we do interactive reading when it's not the first time we read it, right? When, for example, we tell the three little pigs and we say, and he huffed and he huffed and he blew the house down. For example, the children know it, and so they say it, and they become the wolf and they say, and I huff and I puff and I blow your house down. And the kids love doing that, but it's the second or third time you're reading the story with them. Sometimes you do silent reading, and so everybody reads in silence, so it's a moment in which you share silent reading. Sometimes you interrupt the reading for book talk moments, and they say something, so you ask some questions, or you exploit an image in the story, or you look for detail, for example, and you go through the book and you look on the other side, or the cover, or the back page, or the flaps, or the pop-ups, or etc., right? Or the end papers, which sometimes include a lot of information. So you may use the whole book, right? Depending on what the book has as well. For the creative responses, I resort a lot to the arts, but it doesn't have to be only, right? But I resort a lot to the arts. I do some arts and crafts, some drawing, some dancing, some performing, some singing, some self-expression, right? For the children to express themselves regarding to what they have just seen. That's why when the teacher said, draw the images, that's a creative response to the music input, right? Going back to the story I told you at the beginning. And finally, for the reflection, is expressing opinions, saying whether they like it or not. No, sometimes you have on the walls, you have like a notice board in which you have books we recommend and books we don't recommend, and so they put, they write there which books they recommend and why not, etc. So they are evaluating mainly. So let me show you some examples of activities you can do to work with that creative responses area. Now, this is one. These are student teachers, teachers in service, sorry, doing a workshop. So what we were working here is with drama techniques. So we were using what we call freeze frames. Can you recognize? Probably you can. Let's see, just to check. If you don't worry. Can you recognize the story that it's a classic story. The story that we were reading, we were performing here. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. The big turnip, absolutely, Camila, absolutely. Yeah, great, absolutely. It's the turnip. It's very easy to distinguish. Well, sometimes the big turnip is the enormous turnip. Sometimes it's the enormous carrot. It's a classic, so it's transformed in so many ways, right? And it's a great story to work with storytelling without any book, right? Because it's a cumulative story. You always have another character doing the same thing and the same, and you can use, for example, for this one, you can use puppets that are stick puppets. For example, first was the man, or let's see, first was the woman. Yes, for example, the woman who tried to pull the turnip from the earth, and the woman could not. So the woman called the grandfather. So now it's the woman and the grandfather. They both come and pull, pull, pull. And so the kids say with you, pull, pull, pull. And then they could not, so they call the child. So here comes the child. And the child, now the three, the woman, the grandfather, and the child, they pull and pull. And so the children say the whole sequence with you until they call, and there's lots of people, right, coming one after the other, until they call the cat. And when the cat comes in the story, it's a small mouse, right? But I don't have a mouse here, but I have a cat. So when the cat comes, they pull, 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 and they manage to get the turnip, and everybody falls down. And the falling down is great. So the freeze frames, what you do is you can tell the story, and they start doing it. And so you say, freeze. So when they freeze, you can take a picture of them. This is only educational, so you only use in the classroom, right? You can take a picture of them or not. But imagine you take a picture, so you continue telling the story, and they freeze at different moments, and you take the pictures. So then you use the pictures in different order, and what they do is they tell you what moment that is. Oh, that's the grandfather pulling the turnip. Oh, that's the grandmother. Oh, that's the little girl. Oh, that's the cat, right? And so they are retelling the story and going back to the story with their own pictures that they did. In case you cannot take pictures and then show, because in your context that is not possible, you can ask them to create different freeze frames of the story, and we need to guess what moment of the story that is, right? So that is a possibility. I showed you the stick puppets. Here are several examples of stick puppets that I did with my teachers in service, which the children can use to either to show, to play, to say, to retell certain dialogues in different ways in the classroom. Or when you read the story, they have to put them up whenever the character appears. So if I have this one, so whenever the woman with the blue hair is mentioned, I have to go like this. Or when the woman with the red hair is mentioned, I have to go like this. Or when the dog is mentioned, I have to go like this. And the different children have different stick puppets. Also, I do them for one thing. They can take them home. And this is the anchor with what happens in the classroom and how the children tell what we do in the classroom in their families. Very often children find it very difficult to say what they're doing in our classes. But if they go, for example, with the little lovely pink octopus, when they go home and they show their families the octopus, they will remember the song that we sang with the octopus, and they can even, if they can tell the families that they sang a song about an octopus, but they can also even remember the song and sing it at home. So the stick puppets are a stick puppet or any other arts and crafts that we do are a great bridge between family and school, right? So I take care to do these activities with them, and it's a fantastic creative response to the story. Now, this is a fantastic activity. I love to do this. The activity is simply using a graphic organizer. Here, the idea is to create a story rug. So you give them a template, like the one I have here. It's a story rug template. And they can do it individually, or they can do it in pairs, or they can do it in groups. Now, the picture you see here is this activity being done in kindergarten in a state school in Buenos Aires by one of my student teachers. And the children are trying to do it together as a group. This one here, the yellow one as well, this was done by 4-year-old. These ones are 5-year-old. Now, the other ones were done by student teachers, and they respect a bit more the story rug format. Now, the idea here is to summarize the story, asking them to do 3 things. In the outer circle, they draw elements or write elements related to the place, right? So for example, in this one, it says house in the spider web, right? In this one, as they are little and they are too many, we didn't care whether they respected that as long as they included elements from the story. Because the idea is that they go back to the story all the time they're doing this. In the second circle, they are going to include elements related to the characters. And in the middle, their favorite scene. So then, of course, this is shown. Everybody sees that. They talk about it. And then we hang those story rugs on the classroom walls. Or we can also hang them outside in the main hall, and we can write story rugs done by 5th formers or 4th formers, so everybody can see their work. This activity is really very flexible. You can adapt it in many different ways. You do not need to do it exactly as I am telling you, but it's a great way to start working with stories, because they are trying to pay attention to characters, to details. What are the characters' details they would like to include, or also about time, about place, and they need to also draw what is the most important part for them in the story. So that's a very, for me, it's a very creative way to work with the story plot and the story elements. Another one, which is very similar, is the story cubes. They're not very different. So the template is a cube, and what you ask them to do is they need to decide on 6 different scenes of the story you are working with. So then once this is pair work mainly. It can also be done individually, but it's better when they discuss with a classmate and they work together. So so here what they do is they choose 6 different moments of the story, and they draw them in the 6 different parts sides of the cube. So then you create the cube with them, make them in cardboard, so it's easier to manipulate when you create the cube. And then you throw the cube, and we talk about each of the scenes. In this one, I chose Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, another classic, mainly because it also has, the repetition of language. No, oh, this porridge is too cold. Oh, this porridge is too. So it's easy for them to remember the language chunks, and they can repeat that. So this is for the little ones. But what happens with the ones who are in 6th form, for example, or in some of our regions in 7th form? Well, we have wonderful, amazing stories. This belongs to the thinking train, which when you work with marbles 5 and 6, you have this book as one of the possible books to join the course book. And in this case, I chose Survival by Puchta and Biggs. The first thing you do is always working and exploiting the cover. right? And so here, if I show this to you, what would be the first thing? You can be the teacher, not the students here. What is the first thing you would highlight looking at this cover? Kid loves cubes. Yeah, I know. Adventure, says Lucrezia. Thank you, Lucrezia. Jungle, right? Adventure again. Yes. Perfect. So, wait a minute. Kids, oh, sorry. Let me see. Discover new places, exploration, explorer, like Tom Sawyer, facial expression. Thank you, Camila, for the facial expression. Fantastic. Wonderful. Now, yes, problem solving. Right. Well, somebody said facial expression. Yes, obviously we're going to work with the jungle element here, right? Because it has lots of little things like the palm trees, yes, and other trees there. There's a parrot, you know, lots of different elements that relate to the jungle. And then somebody says explorer. And of course, that is something that we would immediately work with the kids because of the hat the girl is wearing to protect her head from any insect coming from the trees. You know, this is important. The girl has a kind of light to lamp, a kind of light lamp. Oh, I forgot the name of the object that she carries. So that is something that we would use when we go camping or when we go to a torch. Thank you, a torch. All right, flashlight. That's the word. That's the word I wanted to use. Thank you, Martin. Flashlight. Yes, thank you. Now, I was doing some transference from Spanish, linterna, lantern, which lantern is a complete different thing in English. Now, let's go back to the cover and let's have a look at the eyes and exploring the facial expression, the feelings, right? Look at the girl's eyes, look at the fox's eyes, and look at the parrot's eyes, right? Very interesting to explore. What are they saying with their eyes? And this is something you can ask the kids. What do you think the girl is thinking? What do you think the fox is thinking? What do you think the parrot is thinking? And I'm asking you, what do you think they are thinking? What is the girl thinking? Look at the way they look. Yes, that is, they are expressing emotion. The illustrator here was fantastic. Interesting to see the difference between British and, yeah, exactly. Right, and international English. Absolutely. Thank you, Lucy, for noticing that. Yeah, the flashlight word, right? The torch. Yeah. Okay. Now let's see if you can write what you think these characters are thinking. The girl is a little scared and the fox is so happy. Will they get me? Right, absolutely. Okay, it seems I am being followed, thinks the girl. Of course, the girl thinks that's absolutely possible. So what you can see is that the girl is a little bit afraid of something. And of course, she's alone in the jungle, right? It's like putting the image in movement, absolutely. Why is she here? Thinks it's what the fox might be thinking. She's looking for something or somebody. Right, absolutely. Great, thank you for the comment. So you see how we are exploiting the image beyond the simple description. We are imagining what can happen here, what can be happening at this very moment. Now, for this, when I work with stories that are much more complex in the term of they are more for silent reading, they are more for extensive reading. So one thing that I want to make sure is that the learners can follow the story plot. So I always work with story mountings, right? In which we create a kind of graphic organizer, which is in this case a story mounting with 3 parts: the beginning, the middle, and the conclusion. So the learners have to find out what the exposition is, what is the setting, the characters, the time, the inciting incident, the rising action to reach the climax, and then the climax, which is the moment in which everything explodes and is revealed. And then that has consequences, which is the falling action and the denouement or the end, right? So then I ask them to do this graphically. So they have to go to the story and go through it, and they need to create their story mountains. These are just two examples of the possible story mountains, right? They can be of many different ways, but these are story mountains that my student teachers created. The first one, the student teacher created the mountain and then added all the information for each one of them. In the other one, it was The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. So they created the house and the black cat, and within that, they created the story mountain sequence. So these are examples that you could use for the creative part. Finally, this is another one. This is one for me, one of the most important moments in which tension starts to be built, because the little girl went rafting with the family in Africa, and the river got crazy. The mother fell to the water, and then the father, and then everybody. So the girl was left alone, and that was the complication. And how she manages to spend the whole night in the jungle on her own, because there was lots of foods and lots of elements, like an emergency kit in the raft, so it was easier. And then she had taken a course, so she knew lots of things. And so in the end, the story ends up wonderfully, because the girl shows that she's very courageous and brave, and that she could manage with the help of the fox. I must say, the fox becomes a very, very important figure as well. But then you have this silent moment with the children, and then you say, okay, this is the text. Why don't you individually choose 10 important words that you think that are relevant in this chapter? So they do that, and then I say, well, now you will work with another friend, and now you have 20 words. Let's see if you have the same words or not. Let's compare, right? So they see what words they have chosen, right? This is word level yet. Then you say, okay, fantastic. Now choose from all those words. Maybe if they repeated some, they have like 16 words. From these 16 words, choose only 10. So together they need to negotiate and choose 10 words. Then with these 10 words, try to recreate and retell the chapter, for example. Or simply put them in order, close the book and put them in order, how they appear, if they cannot retell, right? So put them in the order they appear without looking at the text. So they do that, and then you say, look at the text and see whether it was right or wrong, and change them accordingly. So in that way, you are working. You are going back to the story, you are rereading, you are deciding on the order, you are choosing the words that are important for you. And from then on, you can work with what words they were they verbs, were they adjectives, were they nouns, which words are important in a text, and you can work more with the grammar of the text as well. So these were all the examples I brought for today. So what I tried to do is to show you the importance of storytelling at all levels, to see the framework, the cognitive development, the creative and the inclusive, plus the strategies you can use, the 4 steps model, and the many creative strategies for the creative responses. With this, I hope it was useful. And I am open to answer any questions that you need. Thank you very much for participating and for being so lovely in the chat.
Griselda, thank you so much. We've had people flooding in messages of saying thank you, how much they've enjoyed